and welcome to the video demonstration of the Nebraska Department of Transportation's GEODE program. This program, which operates within the MicroStation Connect or ORD environment, combines the geographic information associated with MicroStation elements with standard library statements to generate a legal description describing areas needing to be acquired for a transportation project. These descriptions are used in the preparation of deeds and other instruments of conveyance through the development of a project. The GEODE program creates the legal descriptions for the areas to be acquired by combining the geographic information associated with the elements within the MicroStation program with standard library statements. These standard library statements can be viewed within the GEODE program itself. However, a listing of these library statements can also be accessed from the department's website, which is at dot.nebraska.gov. Under the Business Center, Design Consultant Information, and the Right-of-Way Design Documentation heading, you will find a standard right-of-way legal description statement document in both Word and PDF format that can be opened or downloaded, which would contain all the library statements if you choose to have them for reference. Once the legal descriptions have been created, GEODE can export these legal descriptions into a text file called a PR2 file. This file can then easily be imported into the Nebraska Department of Transportation ARMS system, which stands for Automated Right-of-Way Management System. This program contains various information for each project, including title research, correspondence, call reports, legal descriptions, appraisals, acquisition documents, and so forth. For each project, the legal descriptions for each tract can be imported directly from this PR2 file. Everything from the various types of acquisitions, such as right-of-way, permanent easements, and so forth. The legal descriptions then can automatically be imported through using a PR2 import feature within the ARMS system. This enables many tracts of right-of-way to be imported very easily through the PR2 import function. Okay, now let's see a demonstration of the GEODE program. Here we have a MicroStation file set up, and we are in the default model, and we have drawn in the areas that we want to acquire for this project. We have our section lines, we have our existing right-of-way line, we have our property lines, and we've drawn in the area using MicroStation elements of the areas that we want to acquire. For the first one, we're just going to do a demonstration of Tract 1, which is we are wanting to acquire a 0.26 acre area, and this acquisition all lies outside of the existing right-of-ways. So it's a pretty straightforward acquisition describing an area beyond the right-of-way that we want to acquire, and it's all using straight lines. So the first thing that we want to do is create a chain model. The chains that you're going to use in your description should be in its own model. So again, just using the MicroStation commands, we're going to create a new model, and we're going to populate the field as shown here. We're going to do a design from seed, use your seed model. In this case, we are in US feet, so we're using the seed file in that. And our MicroStation file here, we are working within the NDOT's ProjectWise environment. So you'll have access to all the seed files, GEODE, and so forth there. At this point, we're going to name our model, and we're just going to call it chains. If you want to add a description, that's fine. And the annotation scale should be fine. We have our scale, propagate. I think that is everything that we want, so we're going to go ahead and create that. So now we have our chain model. The chain model is empty, so we're going to attach the other files that we need so we can see our MicroStation elements. Again, this is just a pretty straightforward standard. We're going to create the base file that contains our designs that we want to acquire. We're going to do our survey. And I think our base file should give us here what we need. Let's go ahead and fit that. And sometimes the scale on that will come in pretty large, which you can adjust your drawing scale if you need to. However, the information that we need is over here, and so I'm just going to leave that alone for here. Now, I still do want to attach my file that contains the existing right-of-way line. So let me add that one in as well. And there we have our existing right-of-way lines here. And this is all in our chain model here. Okay. Turn off the section corner. Okay. So now what the next thing we need to do is create a chain for this 0.26 acre going in the direction that we want the legal description to be written. In this case, we're going to begin at the southwest corner of section 15. We're going to run north along the west line of that section to the existing right-of-way line, which will be our point of beginning, and then go up further north in a clockwise direction until we have our chain describing the 0.26 acre area. Again, we are still in MicroStation. We have not engaged GEODE at this time, so it is strictly MicroStation elements, if you're familiar with how to make a chain, that sort of thing, but we're going to go ahead and walk through that. So in this case, because we have all straight lines, we're going to go to our geometry command, go to complex geometry, complex by PI. In our chain, what we will be doing here is the two key elements here is we need to identify the feature, which in this case it is new right-of-way chain. On the drop down you can see we have new permanent easement chain, new temporary easement chain, things like that. In this case this will be new right-of-way, so we're going to use the new right-of-way command here. New right-of-way chain. And the other thing you want to do is each acquisition requires its own chain. So you're going to end up with multiple chains for a project. And what you want to make sure that you do is name the chains something that it's easy to find what you want that chain to represent. In this case, we're on tract 1. This is our first, and in this case, our only acquisition, but you could have more than one. So we're going to name this chain tract 1. Oops. Tract 1, right-of-way 1. All right. And at this point, you'll define the chain by snapping on the MicroStation elements going in the direction that you want to go. So we will begin here. The first PI will begin down here at this section corner. We're then going to go up to the existing right-of-way line there, and then we are going to continue in a clockwise direction. And at that point, we have our chain, which is shown in a light blue, because we have used the feature definition as a new right-of-way chain. Now, a couple things you can do at this point. If you do need to modify this chain, you can go, because this was created by PI, you can go up to your select element, you could select that chain. The handles do appear, and at that point you could grab these and adjust the chain if you wanted to. In this case, because we've snapped to the elements that we want, we're just going to leave it as is. The other thing is once you select an element and you've clicked on this, you can see the bearing and the distance for each leg of this chain. GEODE does write the legal descriptions in bearings and distances as opposed to deflections and distances. That is one change from the old programs or the old way that the NDOT used to do legal descriptions there. Okay, so at this point we have our chain created, and we're going to now engage the GEODE program so we can create the legal description. To do this, you will first, GEODE is an MDL application, so you will type in MDL load GEODE in your key-in bar. Then to start GEODE, you will type GEODE start in the key-in bar. At that time, it pulls up your GEODE dialog box. Since this is the first time we're going to be writing a legal description for this file, you will need to click File, New, and then save your file with a name that you want to save it as. Okay, and once you have that, the first thing you want to do is fill in your project number so that you can, that heading will be put in your text file so you'll know what file that is or what information that you're looking at here. And since we're doing track 1, you will put in your track number. And you're going to click Add Tract. And then you will need, so you can see you have your tract 1 under your track, and then you're going to put in your parcel. So this acquisition that we're looking to acquire is a right-of-way, and it's the first one. So we'll be using right-of-way 1. You can add your parcel, and you can see you have track 1 and right-of-way 1. And you can have multiples. So you might have a right-of-way 2, right-of-way 3, PE1, permanent easement, temporary easement 1, and so forth there. Okay, so the first thing what we're going to do is we're going to add our preamble statement. So down at the bottom here, you will see here's your statement categories. And if you click on them, it's going to give you then the statement number. And like I earlier mentioned, you can download this library statement if you want. So if you know what you're looking for, you can just go to that statement number. If you don't know, if you click on it, it will tell you what that statement is. So a miscellaneous statement 7 is to the point of beginning, that sort of thing. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a right-of-way statement in a 172, and this is what that statement says here. And you can say the 172 statement is a tract of land located in the, and then all the fields that are numbered and in blue, those are data fields that you will enter in the data that is specific to that situation up here in the statement number, and it will populate that. So in this case, we are going to use a tract of land located in a quarter section in a township and range. So in this case, and you'll just a tract of land located, and this particular one, we are in the southwest quarter. These are section lines. We are in the southwest quarter of section 15. So we will type in southwest. And you can see that when you type it in up here, it fills in the blank down below. So as you're typing, you can see how it reads. So if you get something off and it starts to kind of read gibberish, you can quickly go back and say, oh yeah, that's not what I wanted to read, and you can correct it. So in this case, a tract of land located in the southwest quarter of section 15, and we are in township 12 north and range 3 east. You have to type out the east because that is not in the standard library statement of the 6th principal meridian. And then we will type in a county that we want. And once we get it the way we want to do it, then you'll click add statement. And you can see that that's added that statement 172 with the data that you filled in over in your statements and geometry list here. And it has copied the information up in the parcel legal description box. So it is a created on the fly. You can see the way it is. If there's an error that you determine, you can easily go back and correct that by right-clicking on the statement and click edit. It will bring this back up, and maybe you wanted a different county or something. You can then retype that in and it would correct that. So in this case, we are okay with that there. So we're going to cancel editing the statement up here. Okay, now the next thing we want to do, so we have our preamble here. So the next thing we want to do is use a referring to statement to show that we are going to begin at that section corner. In this case, we're going to use a 145 statement. It says referring to some corner of said section. So we type in, this would be the southwest corner of said section 15. We will click add statement there, and you can see it's stacked those on there, and now we have our referring to the southwest corner of said, and I think what I want to do is section 15. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I am going to edit that, and then I'm going to say section 15. Okay. Oops. Didn't mean to. Let me click edit here. Sorry, instead of cancel, I should have hit update statement there. Let me retype that in. There we go. Okay, so I do have it updated. So editing this on the fly, if you see something that doesn't look right, it's very easy to go back and correct it there. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is now we want to import the geometry that is associated with the chain that we created for tract 1. And okay, I'm going to hit the select geometry, and then at that point I will go over to my MicroStation file and I will select that chain by clicking on it. And you can see here it's imported the chain tract 1 right away 1. And then I will click the add geometry, and it'll ask me, do I want to load all segments of that chain? And yes, I do. And so at this point you can see that it has loaded all the segments of that chain. In this case we have 5 segments that it has loaded there, and it's imported into our parcel legal description window all the data, the bearings and distance associated with those chains. Now what we need to do is insert our library statements within this chain. So you can click on the first chain segment and right click it to add the assumed bearing. So our legal reads referring to the southwest corner of said section 15, then we go thence north 2 degrees west, a distance of 79.2 feet. And we're going to pick our first segment. We're going to right click. And we're going to say set as assumed bearing. And what that will do is it's referring to the southwest corner of said section 15. Then it goes along that first bearing. We say on an assumed bearing, and all bearings contained herein are relative thereto a distance of. So that right clicking on that first segment will set that assumed bearing statement in there. Now the next thing we want to do is identify that first bearing as the west section line of section 15 for reference. And generally when you insert a statement, if you go to the line that's after where you want to put the statement in and insert it there, it will insert that relative to the line prior to that. Now, if you do get it in the wrong spot, it's very easy to move them around. So in this case, I'm going to go down to the second line, line 2 here, and I'm going to hit Insert Statement. And the statement that I want to add is an along statement because we're going along the section line. In this case, I'm going to go down to section 9, statement 94 because it says along the west line of said segment, and I'm going to insert that statement. And it reads, referring to the southwest corner of said section 15, thence north 2 degrees on assumed bearing, all bearings contained herein are relative thereto a distance of so many feet along the west line of said quarter section. If I had that statement in a wrong order, if I wanted that to move up, I could simply right click this and I can say move up or move down if I've got it in the wrong spot. In this case, I have it where I want it, so I'm going to leave it there. So that brings us up to this first line segment up to the point where it's on our existing right-of-way line, and that is our point of beginning. So now we need to add a, well, before we do that, let's add a statement that says to an existing point on the right-of-way line. So again, I'm going to click on the second line segment because I want this to be associated with the line before it. I'm going to right click on the second line there, click Insert Statement, and I'm doing a to a point. I'm going to click number 5, to a point on the northerly existing right-of-way line, or whatever you want to put in there. If you want to put Highway 2 right-of-way line, so I'm going to put in here northerly. And I think I'm going to say existing Highway 15 right-of-way line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit that for an insert. So we went distance along the west line of said quarter section to a point on the northerly existing Highway 15 right-of-way line. And that's where I want it to be. Okay, now that we're at this point, let's go ahead and put in our point of beginning. And again, we'll go, because the point of beginning we're still associating with our first line, I'm going to go to line 2. I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert our point of beginning. So we went along the west line of the quarter section to a point on the north of the existing Highway 15 right-of-way line to the point of beginning. Okay, and now at this point I'm going to go along this section line for the west edge of our acquisition. So I'm on the second line, so I'm going to drop down to my third line segment. It's the line segment after the line that I'm adding the statements to, and I want to put an along statement again. So I'm going to do an insert statement, and I'm going to go to my along. In this case, I want statement 94, so it's along the west line of said quarter section. That's where we're at. And I don't need to type anything in, so I'm going to go ahead that. So we have our to the point of beginning, then we go north a distance along the west line of said quarter section. Then at this point, I'm going to turn and go along this line, and I'm going to add a statement. This is a property line, so I want to add a to a statement. So I'm going to drop down to line 4 because I'm on line 3. And I'm going to insert a statement there. And I want a to a point. Whoops, I hit geometry. I meant to hit statement. So insert statement there. So I'm going to hit a to a point. And let's see, I think I want statement 210 to a point on the, in this case, we're on the east line of the property owned by the grantor. That is the one I want. So I'm going to type in east line of the property owned by the grantors. Yep, that's the one I want. I'm going to go ahead and insert that. So went to the point of beginning, then we went up the west line of the court to, whoops, and I've got this on the along line, I've got this in the wrong place, so that's okay. I will just click this statement, and I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to say move down. So it moved it down, and I set a distance for it along the west line of the quarter section. Thence I go north 88 degrees east, distance of 253 feet to a point on the east line of the property owned by the grantor. So that is the line that I wanted there. Okay, next line I want to do is an along. I want to go along this property line, and then I want to put a to a point on that north right-of-way line again. So I'm going to drop down to line 5, do an insert statement, and in this case I want a to a point. And like I said, you can just click through these until you find the one that you want. In this case, I want a 210 statement to a point on the east line of the property owned to the grantor. Actually, we already had that. We want to do an along here. I'm sorry. So we're going to drop down to the along, and I want a 216 statement, which would be along the property line. So we already went to a point on the east line of the property owned by the grantor. Now I want it along. So I'm going to do that. Point on the east line of the grantor. Then we go south 63 east, a distance of so many feet along the property line. And I'm going to edit that because, so I'm just going to say, because I've already put a statement that says to a point on the east line, I'm just going to say along the property line of the grantor. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that one there. But you could add a different statement that would identify that as an east line if you chose to do so. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. But I do want to add a to a point on that existing right-of-way line. So I am going to go down to my line 5, which is the line after the line that I am adding the statements to. I'm going to insert my statement. I'm going to add a to a point, and I'm going to say statement 5 again to a point of the northerly right-of-way line. So I'm going to say northerly, and I use northerly existing Highway 15 right-of-way line. So northerly right-of-way line, so it reads the same as I used before. Okay, and then I am going to be going down this existing right-of-way line back to the point of beginning. At this point, because I am in my last segment, I'm just going to have to insert the geometry here, and I'm going to add an along statement. And in this case, I'm going to go to statement 27 along said right-of-way line. Being I already call out the right-of-way line, I'm just going to go ahead and insert that to a point in the northern existing Highway 15 right-of-way. Okay, and because this along is not, I want this to be after my bearing and distance, I'm going to go ahead and move this down. And it says to a point in the existing right-of-way line, thence south 86 degrees west, a distance of so many feet along said right-of-way line. That's the way I want it. And now I just need to add my closing because we're now back to our point of beginning. So all you have to do is come over to the white area over here, right click and say I want to add my closing, which puts it right at the end. And what that does is says alongside right away line to the point of beginning, and it calculated your areas for you, 0.26 acres more or less. Okay, so at this point you can read through this, make sure it reads the way you want. If you need to go back through and edit anything, you can just right click on the statement and edit it. You can move it up, you can move it down, you can insert more statements, things like that. But you can see here that it has built our legal description with very little data entry. The only thing we need to do at this point is to add our mineral rights statement. So we are going to add a statement here. Closing. I'm going to click on my closing. I'm going to say insert statement. And this is just our standard mineral rights statement. And we go down here to our mineral right or miscellaneous, I'm sorry. So, and we want to use mineral rights. There we go. And when it's a statement 192, this is the one I'm just using this as a property owner, and we will just insert the statement. And I don't have it in the right spot, so I'm going to move it down. And there's our mineral rights statement. So there's our complete legal description ready to go for Tract 1, Right-of-Way 1. If we had another Right-of-Way 2, I would not have put the mineral rights statement in it. I would have put the mineral rights statement in the very last right-of-way acquisition or the last item that's going to be acquired and filed at the courthouse. Now, one other thing, so this is a standard legal description for just a regular acquisition, which is what we would start out with. And if this tract were to go to condemnation, you could pull this legal description back up and you'll see things in here that says grantor, and the preamble says a tract of land located in, and it does not mention anything about an attached plat. To convert this to a legal description, all you need to do is click the condemnation box, and it has taken this legal description, and the preamble now reads fee simple title to a tract of land and all improvements thereon. It still retains all the section, township, range, things like that, as illustrated on the attached plat, and be more particularly described as follows. Down here you can see rather than it says grantor, it has been changed to condemnees, things like that. So it's essentially the same legal description, but it has slightly changed the format so that it would accommodate the condemnation. And to undo that, you just uncheck that box and it'll go right back to its original. So to prepare the legal description for the condemnation is as simple as opening the file and checking that condemnation box. So also on the condemnation, once you select a condemnation which converts your legal to that format, if this condemnation is for a BELF tract, which is a Board of Educational Lands and Funds tract, their language is slightly different than a standard condemnation. So once you select that condemnation, you'll see that you do have this BELF option, and if you check that, that will change the condemnation further to put it into a BELF format. And most of that has to do with the mineral rights statement. If you see here this statement, and once you click BELF, you'll see here there it talks about oil rights and other type of things. But that's the other option to put that tract in not only a condemnation format, but a BELF format. Again, unchecking those puts it back to the standard statement. One other item is you can see that our area is in acres. If your acquisition needs to be in square feet, just simply check this box and you'll see that that has converted that to a square foot format. So very easy to go back and forth. By default, I believe it comes in as acres, but you can just click that to save it as a square feet if that is needed. And the last thing you would need to do is make sure you save your file so that it is available. You can get back in and you can add more tracks or edit things as things go on. And with that, that is how you create a legal description in GEODE for just a standard, straightforward acquisition, no existing right-of-way, no curves, straight lines, things like that. The next part of this demonstration is we will show you how to create a legal description that includes existing right-of-way as part of the acquisition. Okay, for the next part of this demonstration, we're going to create a legal description for a tract that includes existing right-of-way. So in this case, for tract 2, we have a 1 acre parcel, of which 0.32 acres is existing right-of-way. So we'll have 0.68 acres of additional area to be acquired. So we're going to create a legal description for that. I'm going to go ahead and turn off these highlighted areas. And the first thing we need to do is make 2 chains. We need to make 1 chain for the total area, and then another chain for the existing right-of-way area. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we are in our chain model. And because these acquisitions are just straight lines, we're going to use our geometry by PI to build that. So we're going to go over to our geometry, complex geometry by PI. And the first thing we're going to do is say that this is a new right-of-way chain. And we are going to name that, again, using a naming convention that's easily identifiable for those chains. So we're going to call this tract 2, right-of-way 1. This is our first acquisition. And in this case, I'm going to begin at this section corner, and then I am going to go in a clockwise direction here. So I am going to snap on that, and again, just snapping on your elements to create this new chain, and I'm including the entire area. And I am going to go there. So I right click again. This is all MicroStation commands, nothing tied to GEODE at this time. So I do have my chain for the entire area here. The next thing I need to do is I need to create a second chain of the 0.32 acres of existing right-of-way. So again, I am in my chain model, and I am going to go here, and I am going to say that this is existing right-of-way chain, and I am going to name this as tract 2, existing right-of-way 1. Okay. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and make my chain. And again, I'm just going to, I'm going to go ahead and snap on my elements for my existing right-of-way. In this case, I'm just going to be the 0.32 acres here. And go back to my beginning. And I now have 2 chains. One of them is in a light orange color, and the other is the blue. So I've got my two chains here for that. At this point, if you need to open up your GEODE, if you need to type in your load your MDL app, you can do it. Otherwise, you should still be able to type in your GEODE start. And it'll pull up your GEODE, open your file that you used, because we're going to build upon what we did for track 1. And there is our file. We're going to go ahead and open that. And at this point, because we are on track 2, we are going to add a track 2. Click Add Tract. And then we are going to add right-of-way 1. We will use our add parcel. there. And then it's pretty much, for the next part, pretty much the same thing as what we did for tract 1. And what we will do is we will start with our preamble statement. So we're going to go into our referring to, and we're going to use, or I'm sorry, right-of-way statement here. We're going to use a 172. In this particular case, we are in the northwest corner of section 22. So we located in the northwest quarter, section 22, township 12 north, and we are in range 3 east, and in our county. Okay, once we get that, we're going to go ahead and add that statement in, make sure that that reads the way that we want it there. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll do our beginning statement. Now this one, because we are actually beginning, our point of beginning is the section corner. So we are going to do our beginning, and we will use a 146 statement. It says beginning at the, in this case it'd be the north west corner of said section 22. We will add that statement in. Again, same thing we did on track 1. The next thing we'll do is we need to add our geometry in. We're going to select our geometry. We're going to select our track 2 right-of-way 1, the entire area. And we will add that geometry in. And yes, we do want to add in all segments. There should be 4 line segments there. And so we have our geometry added in here. Now, the next thing we need to do is add our assumed bearing. So again, we're going to set our first line, which runs along the north line of the section there. And we will right click on that and say set assume bearing. Oops, I didn't get down, need to get down on the line there. And then I'm going to say set as assumed bearing. So I have my assumed bearing as that first line there. The next thing I need to do is add my along statement. We're along the north line of the northwest quarter of section 22. So I'm going to go down to my along command. I'm going to set 9 line along the north line of said quarter section. I will add that statement in there. So you can see we did begin at the northwest corner of said section. We went north 88 degrees east on an assumed bearing, a distance of 44 feet, except for I did not put my statement 91 in the correct spot here. So again, I'm just going to right click on that. I'm going to move that up. I should have clicked on line 2 when I inserted that, but not a major issue. I'm just going to go ahead and adjust it to where I do want it to be. So we have our assumed bearing, a distance of so many feet along the north line of said quarter section. So I do have it written it that way. Now the next thing I need to do is I do need to add a point of beginning. Even though our legal description says beginning at the northwest quarter, in order to figure the area, we need to tell GEODE where that point of beginning is. Which is at the beginning of our first line. So I'm going to click on my first line here, and I'm going to insert a point of beginning. So I do have my point of beginning before the first line in this case, because that is the part that we're beginning there, and that's for calculation purposes on the area and that. So the next thing we want to do is we've gone along this line, then we're going to turn an angle and come down here. I'm not going to put any call out statements in because I'm not going to anything. The next line, I'm going to come down here on the third line, and I am going to come to a point on the west line of the quarter section. So I do want to put a 2-point statement on. So I'm going to go down to line 4 because I want that statement to be associated with line 3. I'm going to do my insert statement here. And I'm going to do it to a point. I'm going to come down to statement 14, to a point on the west line of the quarter section. I'm going to go ahead and insert that to a point on the west line of the quarter section. And then I want to go along the quarter, that west line. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a statement there. I'm going to do it along. I'm going to do a 94 along the west line. I'm going to go ahead and insert that. Because that line, I didn't have another line to put it on, I do need to move that up one, not a big problem. So we're going north 1 degree, so many feet along the west line of the quarter section. And then the last thing I need to do here on that is add my closing, and that has calculated my 1 acre parcel, which I knew that's what it was, 1 acre. Now I need to add in or accept out the existing right-of-way. And what I need to do is check that the existing previously purchased right-of-way, so there's a checkbox that says previously purchased right-of-way. I'm going to check that. I'm going to hit my select button, and in MicroStation, I'm going to select the chain that I used to define that existing right-of-way, which I have that in there. And now you can see my legal description has changed to the point of beginning containing 1 acre, more or less, which includes 0.32 acres, more or less, previously occupied as public right-of-way, and 0.6 acres, more or less, of additional right-of-way to be acquired. So that is the way we want that to read. The last thing we would do is we need to add our mineral rights statement. So we are going to add a statement. We're going to go down here to our mineral rights. We will use a 192 statement here. I'm going to go ahead and add that, and there is our mineral rights statement. So that's how you can create a legal description quickly using the existing right-of-way included in your legal description. Again, you still have the same functions with your condemnation, changing it to square feet if you need to. Simply clicking that button will change all these areas to square foot if that's what you require. Otherwise, it'll default to acres. And with that, the last thing to do here is to go ahead and hit a file save. And that concludes how to write a legal description using accounting for the existing right-of-way. Okay, for this next demonstration, we're going to create a legal description for kind of an oddly shaped acquisition area. In this particular case, this area involves a shape that has a curve in it, 0.51 acres for tract 2. And what we will first need to do is create a complex element for that. So I am still in my default model. I am still just working with MicroStation commands. What I will do is go to create a complex chain, and I will click on the elements in the order that I want to write the legal description. So I'm going to begin referring to the section corner. I'm going to come down and go in a clockwise direction. So I'm going to go ahead and click on these elements in the order that I want them to go. And that should have created my element. I'm going to go ahead and copy this just to show you that, yes, I do have an element there. Okay. Let me go ahead and turn these off there. So I do have my element. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to go move over into my chain model. And the first thing I need to do is I need to copy that complex element into my chain model. So I am going to just do a copy command, however you normally do this. Again, we're still working at MicroStation. I'm just going to go ahead and copy that. I'm just going to do a dx equals 0, 0, so that it comes in right in the same spot of where the original is. Okay, the next thing I do is I'm going to create a chain of that element. So again, I am in my chain model. And I am going to go into my geometry, and I am going to do complex by element. What I am going to do is I'm going to do this as an automatic, this particular case, and my feature definition is a new right-of-way chain. And I am going to name this, so this is still in track 2, so I am going to go to call it a track 2 right-of-way 2, because the 1 acre parcel that we previously did was right-of-way 1, so this is going to be a right-of-way 2. And then at this point I will click on the element. And the one thing you want to do here is look at your arrow. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. If you look, you'll see there is a little arrow that pops up here to tell you the direction it's going. So you can determine and see it as this particular one. You can see the arrow popped up at the top there. That is not the direction I want to go. So I'm going to click on another element until I get that arrow saying that is the end of the chain that I want to go, or that is the direction I want to go. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and that should give me my chain in that area. Okay. All right, the next thing I want to do is open your GEODE program. If it's not already. Okay, and we are going to open our file that we have, means we already have one that has been created. And we have that. We already have a track 2, but I do need to add a right-of-way 2. So I'm going to go ahead and type in a right-of-way 2 as a new parcel. I'm going to go ahead and add that parcel. Now, one thing I noticed, because I'm going to add a right-of-way 2, I did not need to add this mineral rights statement in right-of-way 1. I will need to add that to right-of-way 2. So while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and just delete that mineral rights statement out of there, so that I have it, and I'll put it in my right-of-way 2 there. So I am in my right-of-way 2 parcel here. And the first thing I need to do, just similar to the previous acquisitions, I need to add my preamble statement. I'm going to go into a statement 172. In this particular case, I am in the northeast corner of section 21. So, northeast corner, section 21. In Township 12, 3 east again, and your county. Okay, once we get that, I'm going to go ahead and add my statement in here. Alrighty, and the next thing I will need to do is add my referring statement there, because my beginning point is not at the beginning of my chain, so rather than use a beginning statement, I will use a referring statement. That will be referring 145, and it is, in this case, it is the northeast corner of said section 21. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add that. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is select my geometry. So I'm going to hit my select my geometry. I am going to select my chain and then add my geometry. And yes, I do want to select all the segments there. Now, it's always a good idea to check to make sure that the chain is going in the correct direction. So in this case, we did begin at the northeast corner. We did go south 33 feet, and then we continued south 55 feet. So it does look like it is going down this line, which is what we wanted to do. So our geometry, complex element, we do have that in the right direction there. And then it's pretty much just go ahead and populate the same call out statements that you would do with a normal acquisition, however you created the chain. We're going to start with our line 1. We're going to use that as our assumed bearing. So we're going to say set that as our assumed bearing. So our first bearing is assumed, and all subsequent bearings are relative to that. We're going to say along, because we are going along that east line of that quarter section. So I'm going to pick line 2. I'm going to insert a statement. I'm going to do an along. And let's see, I think we want our statement 91. Let's see here, along the north. Nope, don't want that one. Along the east line of said quarter section, that's the one we want. We're going to put that there, referring to the northeast corner said section. Then we go south on an assumed bearing, a distance of 33 feet along the east line of said quarter section. Yep, that is correct. That is what we want. Next thing we need to do is add in our point of beginning. So we will do our second line here. Let's add in our point of beginning. See if that goes, it's at 33 along the east line of said quarter section to the point of beginning. Yep, that is correct. Probably one thing I do want to add in is let's put in a to a point on there. So we'll insert to a point. Let's just go ahead and do a statement 5 here on that. So we will say to a point on the northerly existing it read like that. I think that, so let's see, we're referring to the northeast corner. We're going south on an assumed bearing, distance of 33 feet along the east line of said quarter section to a point on the northern existing right-of-way line. So I'm going to move that statement up one because I want it to go to a point on the northerly existing right-of-way line to the point of beginning. All right. So now what I want to do on line 2, I want to go along that section line again. So I'm going to select line 3. I'm going to insert a statement. And we'll go down to our along. And we will use a statement. Let's see here. 92. Along the east line of said quarter section, that is what we want. We'll go ahead and put that in. We've got beginning, then we go south again, 55 feet along the east line of said quarter section. And then at the next point, we just want to go along this line, don't need any callouts there. And then we're going to go around a curve to a point on the existing right-of-way line. So we're going to go south 80, a distance of 306 feet. Then we're going to go on a 200-foot radius curve to the right, an arc distance of 152 feet, and the chord bears that bearing there, a distance of 148.69 feet. And at that point, I want to put my 2 point on, so I'm going to go down to my line 4 here, which is the line right after the curve, curve 1. And I will insert, and I want to insert a to a point on. And let's try a statement 31. Nope. Let's do statement 5 here. Again, we're going to go northerly. 15 right-of-way line. Let's Let's insert that. So we go around our curve to 145 to a point on the north existing right-of-way line, and then we're going to go north 88 east along that line back to the point of beginning. So we will insert our geometry. We're going to do an along, and let's go to a statement 27. Along said right-of-way line, since I already call out the what right-of-way line that is, I'm just going to add this statement says along said right-of-way line. And again, because I don't have another line to put this in, I do need to move that up one. So I go to a point on the highway right-of-way line, then I go on a bearing and distance along said right-of-way line, and that goes back to the point of beginning. So in the white space here, right-click, add your closing, and it says containing 0.51 acres more or less. And then the last thing, because this is my right-of-way 2, which is my last statement, I will go ahead and add in my mineral rights. And we will use a 192 statement. We'll go ahead and add that in. So now I have my mineral rights, which will be associated with both right-of-way 1 and 2, because both of those descriptions will be put in the same document there. Okay, and then the next thing you want to do is once you proofread it, everything looks like it's the way you want it. Go ahead and do a save. And the last thing you want to do is once you get this all, your legal descriptions all written for all your tracks, or if you want to do it in parts, that's fine too, is you would want to export your PR2 file. Now we do have two export functions. We have a current version of our ARM systems that uses a PR2 file, which is a text file, and then our new ARM system, which at the date of this video we have not implemented, we will be using a CSV file, but they're basically the same type of a file that would use. So for now, we will export to a PR2 because that is what we are using. So I'm going to hit export to, and I'm just going to go ahead and call this my GEODE demonstration PR2 file, and this is just a text file. The PR2 is kind of a unique extension, but it is a text file that you can open in Notepad or Word. And we will go ahead and save that. And just to make sure our file is saved, at that point you can exit out of GEODE and you have your legal descriptions written for all your acquisitions. If you go to your PR2 file here, and we have our PR2 file that we just created. It is just a text file. This just opened in Notepad, and you can see here are your legal descriptions that you wrote, and you can see that you have your project that we typed in, and then it has your tract 1, right-of-way 1, tract 2, right-of-way 1, tract 2, right-of-way 2, and this contains the format and all the information that this legal can be automatically imported into the Nebraska Department of Transportation's ARMS system. So it contains all the areas already in there in the proper format, so it can read it. So with that concludes the demonstration of just the basic use of the GEODE program, and I hope you found it useful. Thank you.